Holy moly, would you look at that? It's a lot of things on the table today. It is a very comprehensive device. This is probably the biggest smartphone I've featured, possibly ever. It's, in the old days, they would have just called it a tablet. The smartphone inside this box has a 7.1-inch display. It dwarfs even the Galaxy S20 Ultra. It's a monster with a focus on gaming, and that explains all of these extra components around the box that actually go with it. It is the Blackshark 3 Pro. There's a non-pro version for those that don't want to go all the way to the extreme, which is what this one does. It has fancy cooling. It can be overclocked. It has a 270 hertz touch input. It's the entire focus is on the ultimate gaming experience. It has shoulder buttons that pop up from the frame and then go away when you're not in game mode. Ha! Of course, it has RGB lighting. It has this accessory over here, which gives you tactile controls if you want them. It has this giant cooling component, which actually functions as an enormous air conditioner for your device that actually works. And for some reason, they gave me two of them, one in the retail box. Am I gonna throw two coolers on a smartphone? Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I will. For that little advantage, because I need it and I deserve it. It has a 65-watt charger. 65 watts for a smartphone? Crazy. Let's do the phone first and we'll get to the accessories. It's obviously a massive video, so kick back and relax, why don't ya? I don't know if this is the final retail box because the device isn't officially out yet, but that's what you're looking at for now. You see the 5G on the front because it does support 5G. It has the top tier Snapdragon as you would want in a device like this. It's a Snapdragon 865 5G. Okay, very cool. Blackshark, a little bit of paperwork, 10-cent games. We have a SIM tool. They've included a case. This is about as standard as you get, minus, of course, the fact that you have these cutouts, because you got to show off the geometry so people know you're gaming. Oh, and then, of course, the shoulder buttons still need a spot to pop out, so that cutout is going to be important. You have that on the first-party case included in the box. This looks like an esports inspired sticker. Smartphone gaming is blowing up, even in the competitive sense. If you're talking places like China, it's crazy. It's blowing me away. So anyways, they got the stickers in there to go with it. This is the phone. Holy moly. All right, just take it all in. Look at this enormous beast. Let's just do a quick size comparison before we continue. Look at that puny little S20 Ultra. This thing dwarfs it in every way, height, width. What can I say? It's tremendous. But hey, that's the idea. It's like a gaming PC in your pocket. Well, it's definitely not a gaming PC, but you see what I'm saying? If you're one of these people who got the big gaming setup at home, now it's time to think about it on the mobile as well. That's the idea. That's who they're focused on. And of course, in those markets as well where people just don't even think about owning a game console or have a game console, there's places, there's people that just want everything portable, and that makes sense too. So that's another target for this. Okay, just let me put that down for a quick second here. Also in the package, oh, here's some specs. 7.1-inch, 2K plus AMOLED display, 90 hertz, but it has that even faster touch input, 5,000 milliamp hour battery, 65-watt fast charge. It's because the device actually has two batteries in it. That's how they're able to achieve that, charge it both rapidly. This is the North American charge brick. For some reason, they gave me the European one as well, maybe just because they have both and identified right on there, just so you don't forget it. 65 watts right on the brick. That's tremendous power. You guys know I'm always talking about charge bricks. It's too much now. We've heard it already, Lou. Relax, but I like a 65-watt brick. It means I don't have to just charge my smartphone. I can charge the laptop, anything. 65 watts, ladies and gentlemen. Also in the package, we have a Type-C cable, obviously. Now, how about this? This is the cooler. This is one of the two coolers that they've included. In case you don't know, many smartphones will toggle back the performance when they start to get really hot because they can't dissipate that heat. This phone is designed internally and, of course, externally to allow for greater heat dissipation and also, presumably, some degree of overclocking by clipping this thing on, which also happens to be powered, by the way. It has a USB Type-C connector right there, and then clipping it onto here and having it sit over top of the internal components of the smartphone. This is going to pull heat and blow it out the back and dissipate, and then also at the same time exchange that heat for cold, and this pad is going to cool down this section of the phone. What does this mean for you? Well, it means you can have longer gaming sessions, let the phone heat up, and still get the same performance. And in certain games, this phone will actually be able to deliver the high settings for those games along with 90 FPS. So you may actually be capable of taking advantage of that extra cooling. So they both have mechanical on-off switches, but they will need to be plugged into the USB cable to be operational. So you're gonna need to be in a fairly static position in order to power this up. You could power it off of a portable power bank, but I think this is more of an at-home kind of environment situation. And this is spring-loaded to fit on the phone, and you need that spring-loadedness to get around the giant phone. And then this thing is also in there because, my goodness, I mean, it's a whole accessory setup. Now, this one's a bit weird on this device because this device does have these pop-up triggers, which again, I'll show you in a moment. When I power the phone up, these actually extend out of the unit when you go into game mode, and they're tactile. It's not just a capacitive button like the other gaming phones I've looked at. If you didn't check out that recent video on the Red Magic, the new Red Magic phone, go check that out because it has a capacitive version of these buttons, which is helpful in game, certainly, but having something tactile might be even better, particularly on something as big as this phone. We'll find out. Now, Blackshark in the past has also created these analog controls. You have the shoulder buttons pop out, but then what about your joystick? Do you want an analog joystick and some dedicated buttons? They'll sell you this as well to give you kind of a Nintendo Switch-like experience on your smartphone with a 7.1-inch display. Now, there's two pieces to this particular component. The first one, it has your analog joystick. What else does it have on it? It has a couple of shoulder buttons, LBLT. It has a power switch on the bottom and its very own Type-C connector. That looks to be right to me. So that piece slides on. That's pretty cool. So it's like a ratcheting system and then a release switch. In this situation, you would still use your top right. You would now skip your left side shoulder button, and instead you would be utilizing LBLT. So you'd get an extra button there from what you have on this side. I mean, your whole rig, if you get this thing all kitted up, you could have that on the one side. Hold on, let's just do the monster rig real quick. I don't think this is officially supported, by the way. We're just doing this for the purpose of, well, for a couple of laughs. That's all. There you go. That's your smartphone in 2020. Look at this beast. If that doesn't remind you of a gaming PC, I don't know what will. That's the most extreme looking smartphone package or anything related to a smartphone I've ever seen in my life. Wow. Looking at the back of the device, you can see this little 4-pin section, some accessories, I guess, eventually, not really any of these, but eventually some accessories will be able to interface with that 5G logo right there. This section in the middle is going to light up, capable of RGB lighting. I like the fact that the camera portion up here with the triple camera setup is not popping out of the body too much. Like the whole thing has some nice symmetry to it. Yes, there is still a headphone jack. And this is important on gaming devices because you want that low latency audio with a nice amp on there so you can use a wired headset. Over on this side of the device is where you'll find your volume rocker as well as your SIM card tray. The other side is a bit more interesting. It's got a dedicated switch to launch into a game mode. And it also, of course, has those shoulder buttons that are recessed. The power switch is up here. Now, this is an enormous phone. Just holding it like this, that's a weapon right there. I just switched from the S20 Ultra to the latest OnePlus 8 Pro, which was a slight improvement in portability. This thing is completely in the other direction. This one says, I don't care what you talk about portability. I'm trying to game over here. Max full frame rate. I want to juice everything out of that Snapdragon 865 5G. Then you get this phone right here, all right? You don't care. The coolers and everything. Once you're carrying these things around, you tell me you care about a slim phone? I doubt it. Part of the reason that this phone is so big is also because it has these stereo speakers facing at you. When it comes to gaming, all of a sudden, I feel like you have a real proposition for why a phone should be huge. You've got to deal with cooling, you've got to deal with sound, you've got to deal with battery life. Like, these are all of a sudden, now you're saying to yourself, all right, this is a proposition I'm willing to hear. And I should also mention that for some reason, by default, it was only in 60 hertz. Straight out the gate. You jump into settings, you want to go to display and make sure that you are into 90 hertz, and you flick the little switch on the side, and all of a sudden you go into this shark space. Now, I've got a few different games installed. There's, of course, Call of Duty Mobile. You have PUBG Mobile. Bullet Force, because it's one of those titles, it's a first-person shooter, but it's one of those titles capable of going up beyond 60 FPS. I do expect that to change as these types of phones become more popular and people are starting to ask for those higher frame rates and have the refresh on the device that's actually capable of taking advantage. There is tremendous configuration on a per game basis. I can clock up the performance on a particular title. I can modify my display settings. Touch sensitivity controls the ability to turn off edge anti-mistouch or turn on anti-mistouch. Your palm taps an on-screen control. I mean, it's a lot of features in here that are specific to gaming and are things you didn't realize were annoying until you've messed with the feature, and then you realize it straight away. Priority stuff for background traffic, which you can limit. You can limit your external notifications. On a per game basis, there are device settings for the accessories, whether it's this particular controller, a keyboard style controller, the cooler, or your gaming headset that you have associated with that particular. These are things that you can adjust system-wide through the Shark Arsenal, as they're calling it, or you can adjust it on a per game basis. This is quite different than some of the other implementations that you've seen out there, whether it's through some sort of accessory or through a capacitive button, which doesn't give you that same tactile feedback as a trigger gives you. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a totally different experience. So the other cool thing about these triggers is not only do they jump up in a motorized fashion when you actually go to play a game, they also detect if the phone is going to drop and retract for that purpose as well. If you're going to drop the phones, I don't know, let's test that real quick. Here we go. Yeah, look, they're gone. Master trigger alert, the cell phone is dropped, and the master trigger is automatically retreated. Let's go ahead and play a match. I'll show you how this is mapped out for this particular game. This whole deal goes in your pocket. You have a massive display, you have a big battery, of course you have tremendous performance with the cooling and the Snapdragon 865. Now you have the tactile feedback, the ability to multitask in the game in a way you couldn't previously because your thumbs are more available to you now that you're utilizing your index fingers. The sound is detailed and loud and facing you, and it almost makes up for the fact that you have these big bezels on the side. They needed some space for those large front-facing speakers, but at least they did it in a symmetrical way. So it's symmetrical top and bottom, and it's also symmetrical bezels on each side. With these games, so many of the on-screen controls get jammed up on smaller displays, and so that brings me back to what I said earlier about the idea, like, how do you justify a 7.1-inch display on a smartphone? Well, that's one of the reasons. If your deal is primarily gaming. Oh, we're gonna have a fight right away. Look at this. Okay, fine. Are they gonna get a gun first? I'm gonna run this way. Surely someone is gonna come looking for me here. Has this been looted already? Still not what I'm looking for. There we go. Now I'll show you how it works. We can look down the sights like this, and I mean, like, look at this experience right now. Now, one thing I'll mention, it's different than, say, a console controller because you tap to look down the sights and you tap to remove the down the sights look. Boom! You guys see what I'm saying now? It just makes more sense in your brain. And the experience, because of it, it just becomes a totally better thing. There's so many touchscreen controls and your thumbs can only do so much. And obviously we learned a lot with controllers over the years that shoulder buttons, triggers are super useful. And this is just one title. This is PUBG. All the FPS games benefit from it. I mean, so many different genres benefit from it. I'm starting to see the light as far as gaming smartphones are concerned. I'm kind of starting to see the light here. We could ratchet it up. Look at this, ludicrous mode. Unleash the potential of the SoC, push it to the limit. Boosting our performance. We don't care about battery life, not right now. If the thing starts heating up like crazy, you got the cooler potential. This game with the gunshots and stuff, I'm telling you, plus the device, it rumbles as well. And this is a thing that you would do one time, down the sights, and fire. And just like that, down the sights, and fire. Now this game is capable of a higher frame rate. There we go. You can see like this kind of movement right here. Having the shoulder buttons lets your thumbs focus on the important part. I want to show you the controller as well, obviously. You got to make sure that the shoulder button is down. You put this on. These are going to replace your shoulder button, just like this. I mean, this is a different level now. Now, I do still have the problem of the sprint thing where you have to reach over here to sprint. But while you're playing, now that at that point, once I have this thumbstick, I really start to feel like it's an advantage. Because it's just that fine-tuning, fine movement. I mean, you get the idea. There's many different ways to use it. They're trying to figure out, they're trying to land on sort of the ultimate scenario for how to interact with mobile games. And each mobile game is different, so it's requiring these kind of sophisticated approaches from the smartphone makers to give you different control schemes, letting you map out your hardware to your particular title you're playing. And it is a bit of a headache, certainly when you install a game. That said, once you have a configuration in there and saved, it's just a matter of booting up the game from within your Shark space. Start playing with the shoulder buttons, say, hey, that feels great, and then maybe upgrade to the accessory after the fact. Look, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. As we know, there's such a wide variety of homogeneous devices that aren't trying to be a different thing. I like the fact that there are these options out there for people who might want something different. If somebody is doing something different. Plus, it's not crazy, ridiculous expensive. It's probably going to be around $700. So, again, if gaming is a thing that you do in a big way on your smartphone, or if it's something you want to do in the future or you're interested in, it's hard. I don't think there's a better experience than this particular phone right now as far as an all-in-one package. When you're watching a video, it's a zero distraction, no notch, no cutout experience. And this is becoming harder to find, obviously, in 2020. And you have these enormous speakers facing your ears. And when I talk about the speakers, it's not just the volume. It's like a detail thing, and so much of it just has to do with the implementation. We got used to listening to down-firing speakers because manufacturers had to go after these aggressive screen-to-body ratios, and detail just inherently suffers when the sound is firing a different direction than your ears. You start to say to yourself, hey, that's starting to look like a valid substitution for some of the more traditional gaming experiences. It's getting closer. And it's because of devices like this Blackshark and the Red Magic device. Just when you think every smartphone you look at is gonna be the same thing over again, you get something like this, changes your mind. That's kind of cool. Blackshark 3 Pro.